Good morning and welcome, Patriot Radio News Hour. I'm Joe Jaquint, CEO of the Patriot Trading Group, and welcome to Monday. What is it? The 23rd day of January. The month's almost over already. It's going to be a big week. We've got PMI data out. We got some inflation data out. We're going to have fourth quarter GDP data out later this week. We have some more layoff announcements. We're going to really get into the heart of earnings season this week as well. We'll see if more announcements follow. Of course, we had NFL playoff games. If you're watching those, kind of a dud this week, but hey, they all can't be winners. Jason will be joining us here in a little bit. He's got some issues that he's working on. 800-951-0592. That is our toll-free number. allamericangold.com is the website. Next week, fingers crossed, if everything goes right, we'll have Joey joining us. Of course, my son Joey at Northwestern Mutual. He is who you talk to, your 401ks, your IRAs, all that Wall Street stuff. Get your portfolio positioned. More chatter here about the recession. How big is it going to be? How long is it going to last? When is it going to start? Right? Because, they redefine everything. Make sure you're positioned properly. 602-909-9048. 602-909-9048. Don't take big losses. That's really the key. When markets are going to be down, right, you want to minimize losses. And obviously, when they're going to be up, maximize gains. Joey's been saying this all year. He thinks this is a year where you probably need to change your portfolio more than once. Right now, you still got to play defense. But by the end of the year, you're probably going to need to switch gears and play offense, but he'll tell you all about it. Make sure you reach out to him. We had gold selling off. That sell-off ended. Looks like right now gold's down $1 here at 1927. As we continue to watch, the Dow is up about 350 points right now. Again, I think just excited about the fact that they think the Fed is going to slow down next Wednesday. So we're closing a little over a week away. Are we just going to get that quarter of a point? I'm still saying it should be 50, but you know what? You can't fight it. So far, all indications from the central bank are we are only going to see a 25 basis point rate hike, which again is going to drive those metal prices higher and higher. Like I said, we had layoff announcements today. Spotify came out, said they're going to be laying off 6% of its workforce. How about Nike closing its flagship store in Seattle? You think about Nike and obviously their ties to the Pacific Northwest. Nike says that after 26 years, it's time to close the store, and we'll see how this retail thing plays out. We know we so far retail has not been good. The only bright spot, we got a bankruptcy from Party City. We got another bankruptcy coming from Bed Bath & Beyond. But at least it's not like 2008 where we had, thousands of stores too many. But again, I think we're going to see more closures in the retail space, more layoffs in that retail space. But we'll continue to watch. But yeah, kind of a surprising to hear that Nike is closing its flagship store in Seattle. But again, do we really have capitalism? Do we really have free markets? Do we really allow for price discovery? I mean, how can we say it when the Fed, with a balance sheet of $8.5 trillion, where would we be without that, right? Where would the markets really be if the Fed wasn't out there soaking up all of this extra debt? And really it's just a case of we've got too much debt, and now we continue to add on. And as the economy slows, I'm imagining we're going to see for the first time possibly in a number of years where tax collections start to go down. Speaking of taxes, Janet Yellen, gosh, can she just go away? I wish she would. She's talking about the whole IRS needs to be revamped. Yep, the whole thing. Listen, we don't even need the IRS. We should get rid of it altogether. Make that tax code so much that we don't even need a tax code. But again, this is how they want it, and then they act all upset and shocked when whether it's Donald Trump or some other billionaire or companies like Amazon don't pay taxes, and they get all offended. But that's exactly how they want it. And I guess she's right. It does need to be revamped because the digital currency is coming. They're going to pick winners and losers just like they've always done. And this is why we've been saying it for how long now. Do not have all that excess money sitting in your bank account. That's the worst place. The last thing you want when this digital currency comes around is for you to have 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, whatever the number is, hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in your bank account and having it there month after month, year after year, essentially telling the central bank, the IRS, the Treasury, hey, you know what? I've done a good job. I've saved a bunch of money. I've lived within my means. But you know what? I really don't need it. I really don't need it because I've had it sitting there for years. Believe me, that's the only excuse they need to take it from you. Be smart about it. Have that gold and silver put away. We'll be back right after the break. Hopefully, we'll have Jason make an appearance, but maybe not. We'll be back. (800-951-0592). Better late than never. I see Jason's pretty little face on my screen. Jason, welcome to Monday. It's been already a pretty eventful Monday. We got the Dow up over 300 points. At one point, gold was down like $15. It's come all the way back. Obviously, I think everyone's getting ready for some inflation data. And then on Thursday, we get our first look at fourth quarter GDP. And really starting tomorrow, earnings season really kicks off. It's going to be interesting to see how many more layoff announcements we get.
Yeah, we'll have to see, Joe, because obviously the way that it's set up that we can't stop the rate hikes, supposedly, if you're the Fed, and you can't lower the rate hikes unless you see all kinds of market destructions. So you're the daily grind of looking at those employment numbers, Joe, and it's just not quite moving as fast as a change in the markets require. So we'll just keep watching it, right?
Yeah, that's all we can do. And again, I haven't seen it. I mean, there's been some layoffs, but I haven't seen any outside. Housing's dead without a doubt. Even here in Arizona, you're driving around open house signs. I mean, they're literally, you can't even drive half a city block without seeing them. Once you get off the freeways, open house signs everywhere. That's new. We haven't seen that here in quite some time. And it's going to be interesting how that plays out. But outside of that, everything else, all of my friends, the restaurants, guys that own bars, the caterers, all of those guys, they're all telling me the same thing. It's just like you said, Jason, it's just getting a little slower and a little slower and a little slower, but it's not horrible.
Yeah, they said many times last year, and the markets could have some problems. Even people on the mainstream media, talk about recessions, and then you hear that term soft landing. I keep going to that. You keep going to that. They're the ones creating the numbers, setting the interest rates, printing the dollars, and so sometimes when you correct, sometimes you overcorrect, and maybe this soft landing just stays kind of soft feeling for a certain amount of time, Joe, and then suddenly it's not soft. That's kind of what I'm thinking is going to happen. I just don't know when that time is. And like I said, even if it gets worse, we start to see that market going down, they stop the rate hikes and maybe even start to lower the rates and start printing again. Even with all of that, I think you're just going to see a long-term, prolonged stress to the American citizen. All I hear is how bad it is. I mean, I heard the average APR on credit cards right now that's being paid is 19 to 20%, Joe. It's just under 20%. How do you even pay your bills if you're paying 20% interest on those credit cards because you can't pay your bills because of inflation?
Yeah, you know what's so funny is, why is that so high? I mean, okay, so the Fed's funds rates between 4.25 and 4.5, right? The 10-year note is like 3.5. Why are they at 20%? And everything I read, they're like, it's all-time record high credit card interest rates. Well, how can that be? I mean, we've had, interest rates. Well, really, credit cards didn't even start till the 70s and really didn't get popular until the later 80s. But I mean, we've had Fed funds rate 5, 6, 7, 8%, and they weren't that high.
I think, Joe, the credit cards can offer debt to a more risky payer, and so they have the higher interest rates to cover for the ones that will just bankrupt their way out of paying back the money. So I think that's why credit cards have always been higher, Joe, because they just give them to people that shouldn't get them.
Yeah, if you want to know why you're paying such a high rate, listen, that's why I said, man, if you're only making those minimum payments, man, it's tough out there, right? You're making that minimum payment. Your balance probably isn't moving at all. Your minimum payment's probably barely covering the interest.
Yeah, if you're paying your credit card bills, that means you're paying the 19% because of the guys that won't pay their bills. You're the good payer. You float for the guys that can't pay, Joe.
Oh, it's just like that Obamacare. It wasn't going to cost us anymore. You keep your doctor too. Hey, you know what? It's debt ceiling, right? We've hit the debt ceiling. So think about this right now. The Treasury is taking all of the money out of the retirement accounts to not default on the debt right now until Congress passes the new debt ceiling. And remember, the debt ceiling was created for the guys in Washington to call a timeout. Okay, hey, timeout, guys. Maybe should we rein this spending in? Is it getting crazy, right? Maybe we need, of course, I think the debt ceiling started, I don't even know, was the debt like $3 trillion, right? Now it's $32 trillion, right? I mean, obviously it hasn't done very much good, but I laugh at the people who say we should just get rid of the debt ceiling. No, we shouldn't. I mean, at least at some point, at least once in a while, shouldn't we have a conversation? I don't know, call me crazy. Shouldn't we just have a conversation to say, hey, you know what? Maybe we're destroying the country with all this debt. It's fascinating to me. And as these interest rates go up, Jason, we're going to spend, who knows what the number is going to be, $600, $700, $800 trillion on interest payments this year alone.
There doesn't need to be any debt at all. There should be zero debt. We should have no Federal Reserve, central private bank. And then the Treasury just prints the money. I mean, obviously, it's good to have a commodity-backed or some sort of a commodity type of money system or something that has backing. But if we go fiat, Joe, the debt should be zero, because essentially what the Treasury could do is what the Fed does, which is print as much as they need to print. So why do we have the middleman collecting interest? So the debt could be zero. We should have zero debt. We have a corrupt monetary system where a private bank sucks interest off of this debt. If you were an owner of the central bank, if you're one of those big players, do you really want the $32 trillion to go down? I mean, that's a lot of interest money you're collecting every year. No,
you want to have that, and it's interesting. Obviously, they're like, well, that's what gives us credibility, right? And of course, look at the 10-year note today. The 10-year note's essentially laughing at the Fed right now with a 3.5% 10-year note, and the Fed is now 9 days away from raising rates to either 4.5 to 4.75 or 4.75 to 5%. It really is. It's an embarrassment. It's a joke of epic proportions. And of course, then you got the Treasury Secretary talking about we need to revamp the entire IRS. And of course, you know what that means. You know what that means. Listen, And I said it in the first segment. Anybody that's keeping tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in their bank account and doing it month after month, year after year, you are telling the central bank, you are telling the Treasury, and you are telling the IRS that you don't need this money. That's what you're telling them. What do you think they're going to do? This is not a bailout. This will be a bail-in, and this is exactly what they're going to do. They're going to say, oh, Mr. Smuckatelli, look at you. What a great American you are. You lived within your means, man. You saved money, but you know what? You don't like to spend it. Now, you could have went out and you could have bought a couple of houses, right? Been a slumlord. You could have been out there investing in the stock market. Well, you could have bought Bitcoin and lost, 80% of your money, but you didn't. Nope, you wanted to leave it in the bank. Well, guess what? Tell you what we're going to do, because we got this problem. I don't know if you heard about it. It's called debt. Yeah, we created too much of it, and now nobody wants it. But we passed those rules with Dodd-Frank. I know we said we're going to make it safer, but really all we did is make sure that you have to pay for it. Here's what we're going to do. And let's just say you had $100,000, and you've had $100,000 in your bank account for over 5 years. Well, you know what? Hey, we're not going to take the whole thing. Matter of fact, we're not going to take it at all. That's how they're going to phrase it to you. We're not taking it at all. No, we're just going to borrow most of it. We're going to let you keep, and maybe it's $10,000 because they love $10,000. I don't know why they're so fixated on $10,000, but that's another, it's like 2% inflation. That's just another thing the central bank just made up and pulled it out of their backside. $10,000, right? It's funny was at least when they first made up that $10,000 rule, I think that was like the Patriot Act type stuff, Jason. $10,000 was at least a lot of money. Right now, $10,000 gets you a crappy used car, right? But think about it now. Let's say they give you $10,000. Well, don't worry. That other 90, yeah, we're gonna give you an IOU. No, we haven't taken it. No. It's still yours. You can't use it. Okay, no, you can't use it. But sometime in the future. I won't tell you when. I don't know yet, but sometime in the future, maybe we'll let you sell those bonds back to us, and we'll give you your money back. That's how it's going to work, Jason.
Well, and you talked about Dodd-Frank, which is something you've gone back to many times. Even had the commercial. Just saw this last night. Bank of America customers report, quote unquote, disappeared money from their accounts after a Zelle issue. I think Zelle's a payer issue, Joe. Have you seen this?
Yeah, Zelle's like a Venmo. We actually use Zelle here at our companies, both the radio station and Patriot. We have a couple of vendors that's how they preferred to be paid. But yeah, I mean, it was a snafu. It was a snafu. Don't worry.
People had thousands of dollars missing out of their accounts. Thousands of dollars, hundreds of dollars, tens of dollars. It was a pretty widespread problem. I was listening to this last night. It's like, wow. I mean, this definitely doesn't look like what it's going to be in the future, but it sure looks like testing the waters with a toe there, Joe.
Yeah, and we're at this debt ceiling, and I saw somebody talking about, let's just get rid of the IRS. Let's just go to, I'll call it a VAT tax, the value added tax. I mean, really, if you wanted the fairest system, that's probably it, right? Which is get rid of the IRS, right? Don't withhold any more money from your paychecks. Everyone gets their entire paycheck, right? Just keep it all. And then every time you buy something, you have that VAT tax. Unfortunately, Jason, the problem is the VAT tax would probably have to start at like 30%. That's how big the problem is right now.
Yeah, I saw that. That was put in front of Congress, or it was going to be put in front of Congress. So somebody, I should see who put their name on that bill.
Well, the House, McCarthy, I think one of his agreements was they would at least throw it out there. It's not going anywhere, but they're going to throw it out there. And quite honestly, you know what? I think that's a great idea, right? Because that way, hey, if you don't consume anything, you don't have to pay the tax.
James Traficant proposed that years and years ago, and it would not just replace the IRS. It would he would eliminate all corporate tax. Corporate tax would go to zero. A lot of these other taxes, like the inheritance tax, it would all just go away, and it would just be replaced by this 25% flat tax on everything. And it is a fair tax, Joe, because if you don't want to buy stuff, you don't have to pay as much tax. And the more stuff you buy, the more tax you pay.
If you want to buy a $10 million house instead of $1 million house, great. You're going to pay 30%, and again, I don't think 25 would do it any longer. The problem is just, could you imagine, the government just keeps spending and spending and spending. So listen, I guess we'll call that prosperity right up until it causes the problem. And this is the problem that all the spending causes. It's called inflation. And then it's called, now what do we do, right? We're trying to pretend to fight inflation, but we don't want to crush the economy. That's called, Jason, that is really textbook of a debt bomb, right? Where you finally ran out, right? You've expanded the money supply so greatly. You've increased the debts by so much. Now all of a sudden, hey, capitalism still works. And you can't prevent it. Sooner or later, right? Who needs to be wiped out gets wiped out. Patriot Radio News Hour. Make sure you don't get wiped out. (800-951-0592). Joe and Jason, Patriot Radio News Hour, live here on this Monday. Gold's down 3, right at 19.25. Silver's down 65 cents here, 23.30. Jason, I just got an email. You just got it as well. I've got 10 sealed cases of 2016 Silver Eagle. So these are sealed. So they come with the strap still on them. They've never been opened. They haven't seen the light of day. Why 2016? I have no idea, right? But hey, we'll take it. Here's the thing. All about price. And again, once again, we've been a price leader in Silver Eagles for a while now. It's going to continue today. Sealed monster boxes. That's 500 ounces of silver, 2016s. Jason, $17,000 today at 800-951-0592. That's what Silver Eagles at, all the way down to $34.
Yeah, and silver. It's funny how silver's down today, but I saw a couple of reports. It's stuff that we already covered, Joe, about the shortage in silver, saying that. And this is a very conservative guy. He doesn't do those wild numbers of gold and silver going through the roof. He's saying $28 to $30 is a guaranteed price this year. So buying it at this price, Joe, you'd be doing pretty good once it hits that 28 to 30. And I don't disagree, and I still think it could go much higher than those numbers, Joe, this year very quickly. I mean, we could see 35 to 40 silver. And it wouldn't take very much at all to get there, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, APMEX has 2016 Silver Eagles as low as $38 and change. If you wanted a 2016 case, and it doesn't even say, it's sealed case, they want $20,700. We're at $17,000 at 800-951-0592. Sealed monster boxes of 2016 Silver Eagles. Don't leave that money in the bank. I'm telling you, Jason, this is one of the easiest calls I've ever made. When this thing comes to fruition, that's what all these IRS agents are for. What do you think? When Janet Yellen's like, we need to revamp the IRS. You think it's because they want to have better customer service? You're out of your mind.
That's really like, because a case of Silver Eagles has 25 rolls of Silver Eagles. It has 500 1-ounce Silver Eagle coins in the box. It's the big green monster box. The price that we're selling it today versus one of those big competitors is you're getting more than 4 rolls of silver for free. That's a pretty good deal versus the competition. You're getting 4. That's 80 to 90 ounces of free silver, Joe. That's essentially the price difference.
800-951-0592. And again, we were talking about this debt bomb, because that's really what it is, right? I started the show before Jason joined. Can we really call it capitalism? You can't call it, because capitalism, right? It's survival of the fittest. If you make a mistake, if you over leverage, if you miss the trend, right, you go out of business. And our central bank and our federal government has decided, well, we don't like that. That's just not fair. We need to bail out everybody, right? And all of a sudden, think about it. We've got a government now that's going to spend close to $7 trillion in a year. That's how big they are. We've got a central bank that has a balance sheet. They've reduced it to $8.5 trillion. And guess what? If you actually pay attention, everyone kind of laughs. They're like, well, it's just a matter of time. I give them another 6 months. I give them, some guys I give them 3 months, 6 months. Some people, I give them a year. But they're going to start adding to that balance sheet again, right, Jason? I mean, it's a joke. It's corporate welfare. It's social welfare. And it's everywhere, because they don't want capitalism, right? Which is, hey, you mess up, you miss it, tough luck. Maybe it's just bad breaks. Hey, you go under. But guess what? You can rebuild. We wouldn't have never been in these situations had the central bank and our federal government not interfered, Jason. And now we have the biggest bubble of all, where everybody out there is just praying, fingers crossed. Somehow we can just pull the proverbial monkey out of our backside and get this shallow, soft landing recession. It's not going to happen.
Everything that a central bank does is just a mirage. It's a fake. It's a trick. It's just an illusion. And one way to do this is, look at these numbers. You know that what we're under is a complete fake, just fraudulent, corrupt system. When they throw the number trillion around, we don't talk about it as much as we should. $1 trillion. If you count 1 second at a time to 1 million, I think it takes several hours, something like that, a day. If you count by 1 second at a time to 1 billion, I think it takes like a month, Joe, or something like that. If you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if you're going to count to 1 trillion, it'll take you over 30,000 years. And they throw these, the $1.7 trillion spending budget or whatever, Joe, these ridiculous numbers. It is so fraudulent. And the reason they make it so ridiculous is so that the average person's like, I don't understand it. And there's like, and the fraudsters tell you, yeah, you don't understand it. If you don't understand your money, we'll understand it for you. And so that's why we're under this fascist. You say it's capitalism. It's a fascist state, Joe. It's the government and corporations locked hand in hand. And of course, with America, it's got a strong military attached, which really makes it fascist. And it all just really spirals down towards socialism, communist state. And this is what you have to fight against in this country. You have to always try to keep your eyes and ears open and speak the truth. And financially, you got to protect yourself, because like I said, if you're not worried about your money, Joe, somebody else will be.
Well, you know what? That's really the right statement for this show today. If you're not worried about your money, don't worry. Somebody else will be. And our central bank and our treasury and the IRS, listen, they're going to worry about your money if you're not going to. It's really just that simple. And at the end of the day, think about this. We just had that big power mega billion, 1 point something $billion, right? You could do like the 30-year deal, right? And we'll give you $30 million for 30 years. Yeah, guess what? That's a crap load of money. That's only a little over $1 billion 30 years later. That's how big, when we talk about trillions, we're talking about. Patriot Radio News Hour. Sealed monster boxes of 2016 Silver Eagles. Get them while you can. Eight 800-951-0592. Joe and Jason, Patriot Radio News Hour on this Monday. Sealed cases of 2016 Silver Eagles until I run out of them at $17,000 a case. That's well over $3,000 off the big online guys. By the way, Newell, which is, for most people, that's Sharpie, Rubbermaid, right? The Tupperware people, they're laying off 13% of its workforce. The layoffs will begin this quarter again as earnings seasons, Jason, starts to pick up here. It'll be interesting to see how many more of these layoff announcements we're going to get. But if nothing else, the layoffs are picking up.
They are definitely picking up. You can see in a lot of ways. You just walk around and drive around a little bit and just see. And the small businesses, which I think a lot of them were decimated during the COVID emergency, that this is continuing to happen, Joe. And how does a small business like I know in Colorado the minimum wage went up. I don't know if it happened in Arizona. But
it did. Yep. Minimum
yeah,
wage rose.
How does a small business keep up with this? The inflation, everyone knows that when the prices get higher, you go to the cheapest possible place to get everything, and that's not going to be the local store. I mean, I saw a depressing fact, Joe. The dollar store saw a 40% increase in one department of their store, food sales. And their food is the worst. You should not be eating the food that comes out of the dollar store. They don't have a produce section, Joe. They don't have a meat section. They sell boxed processed food, and their food sales went up 40% year over year. That tells you how it's hurting people.
We were at the grocery store again this weekend, just picking up a few things. My youngest son leaves for back to school tomorrow. His school they take a little longer break over the holidays. So my wife are getting back to empty nester status, which was kind of nice. We only spent $82. We were pretty excited about it. But one of the things that we bought, we had to buy eggs. And the cheapest egg in there was a dozen. $7 was the cheapest one. We bought the one, the organic, cage free, blah blah blah, XYZ. It was $10. $10. I mean, a dozen eggs was over 10% of our bill.
After taxes, it's almost $1 an egg.
Yeah, right. I mean, so yeah, I get it. That makes sense to me, right? The end of the day, you've got X amount of dollars, right? You've got X amount of dollars, and you're like, I've got so many mouths to feed. I got this many meals. That's what I've got to do.
I know, and you can't. I mean, really, let's face it. The long-term cost of eating Doritos and drinking Coca-Cola during all your meals, Joe, is just going to bite you in the end anyway. So it's kind of like the Fed's position is, hey, you could get higher priced, healthier groceries, Joe, and have to deal with that price, or you can eat the cheap stuff, and then on the back end, you're going to pay for it somewhere very dearly. So it's one of these many decisions. And here's the thing: if you have no money, your only choice is to buy whatever gets into your stomach, right?
Right. And we've been talking, we talked a lot about housing, but we've been talking the overwhelming theme really since the housing crash. So go back, and I know they say 2008, housing crash really started late 2005. Really, housing had already crashed by 2008. That's really when the financial crisis came along. But Jason, listen, you're going to own nothing. That's kind of where we're headed, where already we are getting dangerously close to half of all Americans not owning a home. And I really think over the next 10 years that number is going to flip. We're probably going to have 60, maybe even 70% of people not owning homes in this country and becoming a nation of renters. And to give you an idea of construction, when we talk housing, you got two different categories. You've got multifamily, and then you have obviously the residential single family housing. And there's been this trend. This report really only goes back to 2015. But when you look at the trend, Jason, actual money being spent on single family homes continues to fall. Matter of fact, in 2022, it fell by over 10%. And you think about it, outside of the last maybe few months of 2022, housing was booming, and yet single family starts were off by 10%. And Jason, this number continues to drop. I mean, we're going to be 2023. We'll be well under 1 million new homes being built on an annualized basis. And yet when you look at multifamily spending, Jason, it's up almost 40%.
I think new home building may be on a permanent lower status for a while, Joe. This could be the new state of single family built homes. I think the multifamily apartment buildings, I think those may grow in the future. And so the only reason the housing prices aren't going to crash, I think, in a huge way, but they are going to go down, but it's just because there's not as much supply. And if Joe's telling you right now they're not building them, well, if they're not building them, that just means what's available, the prices may stay stable or just go down a little bit. Joe, what we're going to be seeing is how much is the rent going to go up? Are they going to build enough multifamily units to keep up with all the people moving out of these places and having to go into an apartment? Because I saw rents are still going up, Joe.
Well, yeah, every apartment they build now has the word luxurious in front of it. It is kind of ironic, isn't it? But again, they're letting us know, hey, we're already telling you what's going to happen. You don't know it yet, but your kids and your grandkids are probably going to be renters. Patriot Radio News Hour, final segment coming up. 800-951-0592. Joe and Jason wrapping up this Monday. And of course, Jason and I coming right back with the half-empty cup. And if it comes off, hopefully it will. We'll have Dane Wigington joining us today. So that's going to be a great show. Make sure you tune in to 1360khnc.com for that show. We have sealed cases of 2016 Silver Eagles at $17,000. That is thousands of dollars below the competition at 800-951-0592. And I just got another email, Jason. We've got 50 of the old $5 Liberties. So those are those quarter-ounce pieces, 1866 to 1907. We've got 50 of those. Jason, $595. And again, having that fractional stuff has been real popular lately.
It's just a better way to get gold on a smaller budget, and for a lot of people, they want they can afford a little bit of gold, but they can't get the whole 1 ounce coin at a time. So we've been selling lots of 10th ounce gold Eagles. This is a little bigger coin. This is about a quarter ounce of gold. This is pre-1933, and this is a great way to get in, Joe. I got something I just want to throw in. I just love the listeners when they send us weird facts. Do you know who by election numbers and by polling for popularity, who was the most popular president in U.S. history? Do you know who that was?
I'm going to take two guesses.
Okay.
I would say Reagan or Kennedy would be the two that would come to my mind.
Richard Nixon.
When
he was reelected by the widest popular vote margin in all of U.S. history, and his polling numbers when for popularity, he was he was just skyrocketing numbers. And then 2 years after his reelection, Watergate, and he was gone. And we all know about August 16th, 1971, and all that, Joe.
Yeah, and I was thinking, because I know like the Reagan Mondale election, he won by such a big margin,
Yeah.
and then of course JFK. But maybe he's more popular now than he was when he was president. Probably was.
I mean, think about the image of Richard Nixon today. It's hard to even believe he was that popular, but he was. And it's interesting what you can get done for the good or for the worse when you're popular. So, but yeah,
Wasn't
Reagan won
he?
49
Hey,
states.
remember? Yeah, right. Remember when he went to China? I mean, this is how long
Yes,
ago they were
yes.
working that thing, right? Let's not
Reagan won.
forget.
Reagan won 49 states, but Richard Nixon won more popular votes. He was a
Wow.
bigger winner in his reelection. Isn't that crazy? It's just the stuff that
There,
history it gets left behind.
Yeah, well, you know what? They love rewriting history too, right? And that's the part that as time goes on, they reshape the narrative, and people just forget, right? You just forget, and then all of a sudden you start regurgitating those reshaped narratives, and essentially they rewrite history.
Yeah, and this came from one of our listeners that just emails me. You can always go to 1360khnc.com and click on contact for this stuff. But this is somebody who was looked at a Twitter, and the guy at Twitter this was Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson was reporting these numbers about Nixon. So it's like it got to me, and now it's gone to you, Joe.
Now it's gotten to all you guys. 800-951-0592. Jason and I were coming right back with the half empty cup.